Oh, you might have to scoop this up. Can you turn? You turn.
I'm trying to turn it.
Okay.
It's not working. It's not working. It literally is not working. Happy Thursday, beautiful people. It's Elle Montague, Platinum Convos, streaming live, Intellectual Radio Studios, iHeartRadio. Happy Thursday. Happy to be here once again. So today I have a special guest. All my guests are special, but today I have an even more special than normal guest. Mr. Tony in the house. Hello. How are
Hello.
you?
I'm doing well, doing good. Excited to be here in the house. Share the
Yes.
space and time with you today.
Yes. So I like to tell stories on how I meet my guests. And so I actually had to remind him how he met me just earlier because we've been frequently seeing each other social media the last couple of years. But I actually met him a couple of years ago at a Les Brown. I don't want to call it a convention, but it was like a Les Brown. What was
I
it?
can't
Les
remember
Brown.
the name of it.
I don't
That's the
know. It's
thing.
something, but it was
But it was
wonderful.
right.
It was wonderful. And you know me, I never meet a stranger. So I bumped into him. Actually, we were sitting on the same row. And he said I was sitting there with my friend, but no, actually, that was another person I had just met that day that became my friend and actually knew somebody else that I knew. And then I met him and started talking to him about what he did and what I was doing. And then we connected. So that's like how I make my connection. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Networking. And this was like a couple of years ago.
I know, right?
Time flies.
Yes.
So I would like for you to give your introduction of who you are and what you do, however you want to give your introduction or how you want the guests to know you, the audience to know you.
Got you. Well, I'll start off with a little bit about what I do now. So my name is Tony Lawler again, and I am a consultant. I own Lawler Consulting Group LLC.
Okay.
I started that actually be working in the nonprofit industry and kept getting laid off because of state budgets and things like that. So I took one of my last paychecks and I was like, forget this. I'm not getting laid off anymore. I actually invested in myself. I started a consulting company. And what I do now is I basically save organization directors. I save them time and money by connecting them to like quality resources and services to help them to keep their organizations up and running or sustainability. So I offer services like grant writing, evaluations, program development, youth development training, staff development training. So various things that work with nonprofit organizations that can help them. And then I partner with other consultants who do like IT stuff and things like that. So I partner with them. So we offer.
So you do the
services.
Connecting so that you have a wide range or scope of services that you can recommend to your new clients.
Absolutely.
That's smart.
So one of the things that I say is that I'm a resource connector.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I love it. And how long have you been doing it?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. So you invested in yourself 4 years ago.
And now
I work still doing it.
Yeah, and I work with a number of organizations throughout the Chicago area, offering, like I said, services to those organizations. So
and it's paying the bills.
Yeah, actually,
I'm seeing that you're not. Yeah, bills. You look like bills are being paid over
here. Yeah. So again, it's growing. I'm building it. My website is being redeveloped. So right now, website is being I'm investing in the website. I learned through going through a lot of business events and stuff. You got to spend a lot of money in marketing, a lot of money, marketing and sharing up front. And so that's what I'm working on now. Actually, but the bulk of my businesses, so the nonprofits that I used to work for or used to work with as an employee, those are the ones who they know my work. They recognize what I do and the quality that I bring.
And then so they referred you.
Well, or they hired me as a consultant. I make twice as much as I did as an employee.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I always say, like, having your own business, having your own LLC or whatever type of entity you choose, it gives you so much flexibility and freedom. Once you learn that you can let go of the regular paycheck, then you realize, oh, I can give this up to get something greater. And a lot of people are just like in your same situation, is when you're let go or laid off, or you're tired of being laid off, that you have no choice, but this start something new that's better than what I was doing. Right. That actually happened to me, and how I started my own business is I was laid off. Or my company closed, and then I started consulting for myself, and it's just like, so much better.
I'm going to tell you, I don't want to tell anybody that it's very, very easy. Not in my role. I mean, but I started off buying a ton of books and learning and consulting and figuring out the pay and all of that. Called True Mentors. And this is an organization where it works with entrepreneurs and or business leaders like yourself who want to continue to grow and develop. So we have C-level business owners that will spend their time helping entrepreneurs to develop and to grow.
I love that.
And it is an awesome network.
I need that.
Everybody needs it.
I was just saying, I kind of said it on actually one of the last shows, is that, Oprah Winfrey had Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was Oprah's mentor for a long time. Michael Jordan had a mentor. Phil Jackson had mentors. One of the things that people fail to realize is that we are not created to do anything alone. It's about relationships. It's about partnerships, but mentors save you time, save you money, save you headache. I started off trying to do this on my own, and it took me a longer time. But as soon as I connected with True Mentors, I'm now a junior board member. So I have the opportunity to have as many mentors as possible. I have an attorney that's a mentor. I have other business owners that's my mentor. I can go to any one of them. But the great thing is we match you organically. You select your mentor. You can read their bios and their life and with their beliefs and all of that stuff. And then the relationship is organic. It's just how much time. Yep. And it builds from there. So how did you, I was thinking about this because we talked a little bit about mentorship before, and I really believe in it because it's so, so important, especially for the youth. How did you get into this? Like, how did you start? How did your passion start building in this specific area? Well, in terms of nonprofit, but in general, a little bit about myself that I didn't go deep into, but I actually grew up. I'm the oldest of 5 boys. My mom was majority of the time growing up was a single parent, so she had me when she was 15, going on 16. Oh wow! So by the time she was 22, she had 5 boys. So so her life. We struggled growing up, like we lived in poverty and so forth and whatnot. And it was at one point where down the line, my mom struggled so much, she actually sold drugs to try to make ends meet. She sold to an undercover cop and got locked up. And me and my brothers got split and went into foster care. So my story, even though there's a lot of trauma and stuff prior to that, but when I went into foster care, we all got split up. 5 boys, we got split up. How old were you? I was 13 at the time. 13. Yes. And so I attended Morgan Park High School, but I was able to stay in the high school, although I moved around. And I was just talking with somebody yesterday about this. I moved to about 6 different foster homes in high school throughout. 6 like I was just moved around. Yes. Homes. Stay with different people, different family members. I just varied. But the good thing is my worker, DCFS worker at the time, who's actually still working with DCFS, she mentioned about college to me. No one in my family, my mother, my grandmother, they hadn't gone to college. They just graduated and they worked. My mom dropped out right before graduation, so she didn't even have a high school degree.
But my counselor at school and my DCFS worker encouraged me to go to college. I honestly didn't even know what college was. I never even thought about it. So I went on a college tour to U of I. And when I went on that tour, I was like, oh yeah, I want to go to college. So DCFS had this opportunity where you can apply for scholarships. And it was hundreds of people that would apply for the scholarship, but they're only going to give 45. And I actually got a scholarship 4 years to go to
amazing
University of Illinois in Champaign.
So that was just like a good thing.
Yeah. So in some cases, the system can be good, although we were taken, but it did serve to help pay for me to go to college. So to answer the question then is, when I graduated, I wanted to give back. And that's how it all started with me. I wanted to give back, and I wanted to help other young folks, young people in the communities that I lived or wherever. I wanted to show them, like, with positive people, with support, living in a place of hopelessness. Like, I'm telling you, I didn't go in deep into a lot of the stuff that happened, but to be able to have that support to push and encourage. So I used the fuel that was the anger and all of this. I used this type of stuff. Father wasn't around, left when I was 3 and stuff like that. So I used this sort of fuel to say, I want to be better than my parents. I want to be better, right? And that, I know that might sound negative, but that's what was my survival skill for me.
But that's what most parents want for their children right now. Is like, you want your children to be better than you. Yeah, and so to hear your story and to have, I'm listening to you and thinking about how it would feel to be 13 and put in this situation where you are aware and you know exactly how things are unfolding. Like, I'm sure you were surprised when it first happened. But, is it something that, out of that experience that really stuck with you? You said the moving, or is it the difference in families, or was it?
Well, there's a couple of things that stuck. Interesting thing that I sort of use this now when I talk with people that are in foster care or just people who feel disconnected from their blood family. What I've learned is that some of the people in my life, even to this day, like one of my best friends who took me in when I was in foster care in high school, we're still really good friends today. We just actually had lunch a couple of weeks ago. He lives in Arlington, Texas now, but we still communicate. The good thing is that there are some people in my life that were friends, but they became my family. It's kind of like being grafted into a tree, right? Yeah. That family, to me, sometimes, depending on who it is, it's like they can be viewed as my friends in the position where they're at in my life, right? Because of some trauma or things like that. But some of my friends I look at as my family. It doesn't have to be blood, but they love me, they respect me, and they work with me and they support me like a family should. So to me, one of the things that stood out is during that time, I had a lot of drama with family. But with my friends, those are the ones that actually helped me get through. My football coach, Coach Spurlock, he was in my head like my secret father figure, right? So he was a coach. He was hard on me, but he made me a better player. He made me a better person. It was I'm like, why is he so hard on me? But now when I look back, I'm like, I appreciate that, because that was the that was the discipline that I needed. Right.
And that's who you looked to.
That was,
and he was providing that.
Yeah, he was my football coach and my track coach all 4 years.
But you stayed and continue to be active. And apparently you stayed in the books to be able to get the grades to actually get this scholarship.
Yeah, the secret behind that was I didn't want to go home. So wherever home was, I wanted to, I did as much as I could by staying after school and in sports and things like that, because I didn't want to go to wherever I was living. And so that was, again, I used a lot of negative. I mean, this is called, it's survival mode. When you go into survival mode, you do what you need to do to survive. And so I used different techniques to do that. I got hurt a lot, and I was disappointed.
And this just came from yourself.
Yeah, I try to find out, like, because I was thinking about, I was like, well, I have 4 younger brothers, and when they were younger, they're doing now. One of my brothers was killed when he was 21, very violently, drive-by shooting. In fact, bullet was aimed for the other brothers, and he took all 4 of those bullets that was aimed. So, but they're doing well now. But when they were younger, I mean, their decisions, to do certain things, it was different than mine. Let's just say it like that. I just was adamant about, just staying focused and staying on the course. But I don't know. I didn't have a father figure that says, Tony, you need to do right. No, I didn't have a mother figure that was, showing affection. I didn't have that affection or anything. I'm the youngest of 5 boys. I don't remember ever really feeling like love or that affection, growing up. And so then that has caused some issues as I got older in terms of relationships and things like that. But again, those but
at the same time, what I love about what you're saying is, we can find ourselves so deep into a position that it feels like, okay, I'm drowning, I can't get out, and make some choices that continue to make us, swallow us into this bigger, deeper abyss of, of life-threatening, just basically killing us, right? But
poor decisions.
Yeah, poor decisions. And what I'm hearing is like, okay, you were able to say, okay, I'm going to take this energy and make some positive choices that have led you to stay well above, keep your chin up and well above water, and then actually find a way to the top of this mountain to where you are now, where you have a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
I think
there's a cost to being first. I call it being first. I just recently I was a keynote speaker at the DCFS Youth Summit in Kishwaukee College, and their theme was no excuse. But I did talk about the cost of being first. Like, I'm the first in my family to go to college. There's all these firsts. Like, most of us, that we strive to work hard, go to school to be first or to do something, to be at top, to be a champion. But there's a cost of being first. And I end up using this acronym for them to remember it. And the letter F is forgiveness. And so there's a lot of things that happen.
Before we go into this, I got to make sure that I understand what we're saying. The cost of being first. So what do you exactly mean? Are you saying that to be first, you
go through some things? You go like a chat, like
you got to pay something.
Yeah, to be first. I mean, right?
You got to give something. You got to work.
Sacrifice some things.
Okay.
Because to be first, you don't just. I mean, our gifts will make room for us, right? I tell people, you can work a job and you can build all the skills you want at that job. That job can fire you at any moment. But if you operate in your gift, whatever that gift is, if it's singing, if it's acting, if it's basketball, whatever that gift is, if you operate in that gift will make room for you. You can't get fired in your gift.
That is so true.
So we spend a lot of time trying to work in. There's this cycle, and Les Brown talked about it at the event that we did. There's this cycle, right, that we tell people to go to school, get a good job, get married, have a family. Then you teach those children to go to school, get a good job, and have a family, et cetera, et cetera. All the while, that cycle of building debt and so forth, right? But here, what we have in some of our communities, where we're dealing with a lot of high crime and poverty, and even in the foster care community, we try to teach that same model. It doesn't work, especially when you're from a broken family. But what I've learned now is this role of being an entrepreneur, right? And so I'm talking about being first or whatever it is. There's a cost to that stuff. There's a cost to break those cycles. Why? Because we have to train ourselves to stop thinking about that cycle that actually doesn't even work. So if we look at it right now, there's a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds that are millionaires. Why? Because they'll take something like a phone and they'll say, I don't like that this phone gets frozen. Then what do? They figure out a way to redo that. They figure out a way to fix it. They could take any item that we have. wrong with school if you got to be a doctor or something like that. But to be an inventor or to craft your gift, singing, you just have to craft that gift.
Yes.
For me, I love to speak and work with young people. I love this entrepreneur piece. I am right now working on a curriculum that a youthpreneur organization curriculum that while everybody is trying to talk about youth going to college, guess what? In foster care, 50% of all the kids in foster care might graduate from high school, but only 4 to 5% actually graduate from college. I graduated from college. I'm only one of 4%.
Yeah.
That goes to college. And so we're pushing university. But guess what? With so much trauma that people go through, they're not going to focus on education right now because they're still worrying about where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? I just seen my friends get shot. Every day there's some trauma. We're not dealing with that before we can actually move forward.
You know what's so crazy? I'm having a light bulb moment as you're talking. Light bulb moment. Because you're talking about the circles and what I'm hearing. And my mind
Systems.
is my mind is saying generational curses. Generational curses.
And I'm breaking that.
Generational curses. And some of the generational curses that we, accept and move forward with, are the ones that are more evident. Like, it's okay to be in a single parent home. It's okay to have children, before you're ready. It's okay, those types of curses. It's okay to have someone out on the street and do this and do that. And then to think about the cycle of trying to keep up with the social norms that are not good for us in the same light is kind of like an eye-opening thing for me. Because I do know for a fact the statistics in terms of the job availability for college grads, because there's so many college grads that are receiving BS degrees, bachelor's degrees in areas where they can't even get any work and they have all this debt.
Yep.
And then on the other side of the table, we have all of these like tech jobs or craftsman jobs that are just laying by the wayside. They're actually 6-figure jobs, but we don't have any skilled labor to fill those jobs, like construction. And someone was telling me train conductors. There's a lot of jobs available right now for train conductors. That's a 6-figure job. And all you need is a high school education and they will train you. So those things are available.
Connection.
You got to know
to those particular things, because while the jobs are out there, one of the things is matching them with the people, the qualified people. And again, depending on the community that we're in, the resources are passing specific communities. They're not getting to those people. They're getting to the people who they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil or whatever. But in some cases, it's people, we don't know what we don't know.
But we don't seek. But also, we don't seek.
That's true, because that's
we
the
don't
difference.
seek. And I love this. What you're saying is the children and youthpreneurship, because we don't. I'm putting two things together here. We don't seek because, like, let's just say we have a lot of people who are ex-offenders that are now, they're not called ex-offenders anymore. We call them returning citizens.
Okay.
That's the PC term. Yep. Returning citizens. So we have returning citizens that are not positioned to get income at a certain level because of their backgrounds, right? And these people, would be perfect candidates to become entrepreneurs if they just understood and knew what they needed to do to start their own businesses. More than likely, they have pretty good skills at business skills. More than likely, I'm pretty sure they understand business and can have pretty good business skills that could get them, moving. But that opportunity or the thought that they can have that opportunity is not present in a lot of people because they just don't know what the steps are. Or
there's no one that really approached them and let them, to see here's an opportunity. Because one of the things I think about, if somebody is really good at selling drugs, well, here that tells me one, your product. 2, you can market it because you make sure you tell people you got that good stuff, right? And then 3, you have to have time management, know when the best time to go out there. There's all these things that the things that they have. But if you just teach them and say, okay, I'm going to show you on a part-time level how you can tell me what you always wanted to do, a product or something that you like, clothes, shoes, whatever. Okay, let's sit down and design something. Let's figure out what you want to do. But again,
same business skills.
We have to get people who are actually willing to take the time out, because that's one of the things that I learned working with I started an organization working with foster youth some years back. I'm no longer with them now. I'll tell you that story in a little bit. But when we were working with youth, we came up with a program called Success by 25. What we did is, currently in a foster care system, I can predict the exact day that they're going to be homeless. It's on their 21st birthday. So when you're in foster care in Chicago, you emancipate at 21, you're on your own. But if you think about it, in some cultures, no matter what age they are, they get to stay home until they get married. Like if it's a woman, they can stay home till they get married. They work. The family helps to support them, sustain them. If somebody loses their job, guess what? They come back home to mom, dad, whatever house, right? But in foster care, when you turn 21, you're done. So even if they're housing you, even if they have a what they call transitional living program or an independent living program, you have your own apartment. But what's happening is right now, the system pays their rent, pays their bills, so they don't know how to handle the money. Then on their 21st birthday, if they lose that job a week later or 2 weeks later, they become homeless and addicted.
Just cut free.
That's it. And then they can call back and call that worker and they'll say, sorry, you're 21. I can't work with you. So when I was I was getting calls after calls after calls after calls. I had connected with so many resources. So I've been doing resource way before I started the company. So people were calling me, Tony, I'm homeless. Tony, I need food. And so me and 2 other former foster youth, we started the organization, Struggling Youth Equals Successful Adults. And what happened is we then developed a program, and not mentorship, life coach. So we would take a young person, we would take them to go get IDs. And then show them the ropes. We would help them get housed. We had to get IDs first, then a social security card, because some of them don't have it. Or if they lose it, they don't know how to do it, but they don't even know how to go and get it, or they don't have the money to do it.
Oh my goodness.
And so there's a lot of stuff that you don't, and then look, and then while they're in foster care,
think this was a big challenge, but this is a big challenge for people.
Guess what? It's been going on years. The system is the same. I'll tell you this. I was in the system when I was 13, and then I worked to help foster youth from 2009, and I still work with foster youth right now, right? But check this out. In 2013, my daughter, so 6 months old, she had a very severe accident that caused her to have an emergency surgery. The doctors said she wouldn't make it, but yet through lots of prayer and everything, she did. But here's the thing. We were accused of actually abusing our child, and I was arrested and locked up in jail, and I had to defend myself for 4 years while my kid was in foster care. I had to defend myself for 4 years from DCFS to prove I didn't do anything. I wasn't even around when she had the accident, but because I was in the same house, they said, you're responsible. And so I actually had to fight. So I know the system. The system is exactly the same years ago, and it's still the same now. Doesn't matter that they changed directors. The system is set up that it helps in some cases, but it pulls families apart. If you're a mom,
but I mean, so I'm gonna jump in right here. It hurts because this opioid epidemic. This opioid epidemic, I see on television, I see on the news, mothers are shooting up with their babies in the back seat. Mm-hmm. I see mothers that are passed out in Walmart with their babies in the cart.
Yeah, okay? The struggle is real.
But I don't see the children being taken away from those families and put into foster care the way that children were taken away and put into the system in the 90s, in the 80s with the crack epidemic. I don't see that. I've seen, and I was like, okay, I got to check myself, because I actually followed a couple of mothers that actually were arrested for doing something like that, gone into rehab, and get back out. And guess what? In those stories, those mothers still have their children.
Right. So it depends.
So is the system the same, or is the system set up for certain people a certain way and other people another way?
Well, here's the statistics. I'm going to just show you this, that of all of the youth that are in foster care, that stays in foster care from a young age till there's a large percentage, and I'm not going to give an exact percentage because I don't want to quote anything wrong, but there's a large percentage of them that are African American boys and girls. And in fact, the ones that get adopted are mostly non-African American.
So the majority of
kids in foster care from birth till that do not get adopted are African American. And those are the majority of the kids that are in foster care. That's majority of the ones that I've been working with and serving, that I'm still coaching. So
it's almost like this is in parallel with
similar to the prison system.
Yeah, this is like the prison system.
I mean, so the percentage of the youth that don't go to college or graduate from college, I mean, that 4%, they're counting those that were adopted, that have family, that have people that support them to get through them college. That's a part of that 4%.
This is a sad story.
Yes, a system. But again, it's just gonna, I mean, one person. Right now, I'm working with youth in care, current youth, those that emancipated. We're working on a book called Life After Foster Care. And we're talking about each of them are going to get a chapter in there. And they're going to talk about what brought them into foster care. And then some of the ups and downs, because there's some ups to it, depending on them. Ups and downs that happened in foster care. And then they'll talk about their story after they emancipated. Where are they now? Many of them are still homeless. Many of them are struggling, and they come to me for help. I pay out of my pocket. I give people food. I help them get haircuts, IDs, all of this stuff. It's costing me a lot of money to do that. But this is the passion that I have to give back. So
how do you as a person, a person who's gone through foster care, a person I'm sure, and we haven't even talked about that, still has issues to deal with your own family, your mother and your core family after everyone's being separated. I'm sure there's a lot of emotional trauma that hasn't been resolved, and how you become whole as individuals and whole as a family again. And then you have your own family in which you had to go through so much in the system with your own child. Yep.
And that was a reoccurring thing that I did not want to happen. In fact,
how do you just like say, how do you keep moving forward with it without turning your back and saying, just forget this. I want to just erase this part.
Right. Well, there are times where I do that, but I'm usually at home yelling and not yelling, but I cry. As a man, I was always told, like, we don't cry. But in these last few years, I've been crying a lot ever since my daughter's incident and stuff like that. I am a single father now. So the incident that happened, it tore my family apart because we both were accused, but then we were pit against each other in terms of that. And so anyway, that ended 4 years ago. And so I'm a single father, and my mom, I talked about forgiveness. I was told I didn't even go to church until I was in college. But one day somebody invited me, and that's when my transformation moment worked, because that's actually what helps me get through. It's my relationship with Christ. It is only that, because there's days where I'm like, I want to give up, or I would be so angry about the way that the system or people attack me that I could too be angry. I can understand why some people do some crazy stuff.
I'm angry.
But it is through this sort of calmness or peace about me. It happened through years of just praying and allowing God to sort of change my heart. But I had to forgive my mom. I had to forgive my mom, my father, even if
she
just was on. Yeah, she made some poor choices, which caused that. So by me forgiving, that allowed me to move forward, because forgiveness is for me, not really about the other person. So I was able to forgive. That helped me to move forward with those people who disappointed me and affected me. But I ended up forgiving her. And you know what? She wasn't there for me as a, growing up. But when I had my daughter, man, was she there? She was there, like, helping out. She would babysit. And while I was going through the thing, like, I became homeless. I lost my job. I started an organization. I was a co-founder of it, but I got fired from my own organization because I was being accused by DCFS. So they decided, well, we didn't want the conflict. So they actually let me go. And so during that time, I became homeless at the age of 35 years old. Here I am helping all of these young people. And now I'm couch surfing. I'm sleeping on people's couch. I'm out there, like, going through all of this stuff. And my mom was there. She actually helped out. She watched my daughter. She made sure. This was before they took her into foster care, but she's still with me that whole time. And then she actually passed away 2 years ago, once the case was over with. She passed away. But she got a chance to see that my daughter was returned. And so she got a chance to actually be there for my daughter, which was great. It was sort of an opportunity for her to redeem herself.
So you just really just like took all of this information, and then you're able to look back and see what the highlights are to have this step forward. Because I cut you off earlier. Now it's coming together, and I'm getting it now. You said F was for forgiveness.
Yeah, so I used the cost of being first, right?
Yeah, so the cost of being first.
So I did. I just looked at being first. So F is like forgiveness. I is integrity. You got to have integrity. Like you no matter what people say about, like I said, I was accused about, doing stuff, but you got to have that integrity, no matter what's going on, in life. Like if you have a character, sometimes that's what I say is all I have is my integrity and my character. And that's how I live my life.
And it's brought you through.
It brought me through. The R, I think I mentioned, was reaction. So 10% of the stuff that happens to us, we have no control over, but 90% of it is how we respond. So the fact that people have harmed me or hurt me, or the system or whatever it is, whatever happens to me, I understand that happened. And whether you're a believer or not, doesn't mean that all good things is going to happen. Things happen, but it's how we respond to those things is how I look at it. So somebody is angry at me or does something to deceive me, I look at how do I respond. When I was dealing with DCFS, one of the things that they were looking for me to be angry or to show anger so they can say, aha, we got you. But all the while, they didn't allow me to see my daughter. Different court dates and different things that I wasn't privy of, because they were really trying to set me up and provoke me. But in none of those times did I ever do anything. They made me see a counselor, and the counselor that I had is African-American female counselor. That counselor testified that this young man didn't do anything to hurt his daughter. They said she's biased. So they get me another counselor, a male, right? And then he happened to be African-American male that was from DCFS. He testified. He said, this brother is a better father than how I was when I was. He was like, I would let him take my grandkids right now and have a day with him. They said he's biased. So then they gave me a Hispanic counselor, and who was more of like a psychotherapist kind of dude. It made me take all these tests. And the only thing he said, this guy passed these tests higher than anybody we've ever seen. He was like, it's so perfect that, that was the only thing about it. He was like, he passed it perfectly. They did something where they watched my response. All of that stuff is kind of like almost taking a lie detector test. Absolutely nothing. And yet they were still saying, like, you had to have done something. They looked into my files from 13. It was like, you were angry at 13, so you must have harmed your daughter. And I was like, no, I actually saved her life. I gave my daughter CPR at 6 months. 6 months old, and it is what actually helped to keep her alive until the ambulance came to take her. And so, yet again, I'm telling you about the system or reaction. They want you to respond. So when we see these things that happen to people, they want us to respond so they can turn around and say, see I told you, look at that. All the while they're provoking you. The system does that all the time.
In so many different ways.
And so
in so many different ways.
Which is why the S in first is strength. We have to have strength. I don't know where most people will get their strength from, but mine comes from my relationship with God, because I can tell you every single day I wake up, I'm thankful, but there's times where it's hard. It's hard for me. I mean, it's hard to, just sometimes just having raising my daughter. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard for me.
And how old is she now?
She's 5.
Oh, she's 5.
Yeah, she's 5. So, but it's hard at sometimes, and I cry a lot. Be honest with you, I'm no joke. But where I get my strength from is knowing that I have a 5-year-old daughter. I want to be around for her. I went through the system and did all of that stuff, but I can use those things to help other people, to pull them up. So in order for me to make it to the top of the mountain, the T, the last thing is tenacity. So you have to, it's like Les Brown said, you gotta be hungry.
Yeah, that's exactly
right?
What he said.
So,
right?
So I use that to fuel that fire, to push through. It's kind of like if you're in quicksand, if you're not, a lot of us and our culture and just people, like, we're dealing with so much stuff. Oh. You're starting like here. If they say, let's have a race, everybody's right here starting. We're starting back here. If you've been in foster care, if you're African-American, everything, you're starting way back here. But what happens is you got to actually start further back. So like when I graduated with my class at U of I, it wasn't that I'm equal to them. Think about it. These are kids who parents helped them get through college in some cases. I started from the back and I graduated with them. I look at that like,
that's a huge
shame, right?
That's a huge
I used to be ashamed of it, but now I'm like, no, actually, I tell everybody, I was in foster care system. I have a business. You got a business? What's the difference? I went to college. I'm getting my math. I'm working on my master's degree now at Wheaton College. I mean, what, right? But yet the difference is I have trauma packed on top of trauma, packed on top of trauma, packed on top of trauma. And those are the things that I have to deal with. We talked about people not being free and not being able to move forward. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, and not having hopelessness, right? And it's because statistically it shows, a study on the brain shows that we adapt to our environment. So if you're in an environment that has no businesses, that has low resources in the community, that have no economic support, the families are on drugs, mom's on drugs, dad is locked up in jail, you're going to
generation after generation
be almost like you. Your brain is going to adapt to that.
And it's in your DNA. It's in
because
your DNA.
It actually is hereditary in a sense, right? So here's the thing, right? That if we can take a person out of that environment and you start off by showing them love, you start off trying to encourage them, and it's going to be hard. I've done this with youth and care, that it took 5 years for one particular person. His name is James. I'll just use that. I started working with him when he was like 18 years old, and we got him a job and he got fired. We got him another job and he got fired. He got another job and he quit and all that. But here it is now. James is now 25 years old. He's been at the job that he's at. He's been there a little over 2 years, almost more than 2 years. He's a manager and he is doing well. He has an apartment, has a car. His car newer than mine.
Okay.
I mean, he's doing his thing. But what's exciting, what I love about of that particular situation is that I continue, and it's not just me, it's other people, but we continue to pour into James, continue to support him and continue, because he too went into foster care. You know what I mean? He was in foster care, right? And so what happens is you have to try to encourage young people, and that's why I'm adamant about doing the youthpreneur piece. But I have in my curriculum, I can't reveal all of it because what happens is some people would take that, go market it, and then they say it's theirs. So I want to wait till I make sure I get that piece up there. Y'all heard it first on here. All right. So, but what we did with James in terms of life coaching, I literally mean that when James needed a place to stay, help him get a place to stay. When it didn't work out there, keep on helping him. He needed an ID, get him an ID. He lost that ID, go get him another ID. But what happened is we initially handheld and go and do it with them. But the next time we say, now you get up there and you ask, you fill it out. So now with James getting these jobs, he knew, okay, I got to stay connected to a employment training place, like a temp agency. He connected with the temp agency. He built a relationship with the owner there. And that's how he was able to continue to go, right? But at some point, he started to get it. He started to understand. And anyway, I don't want to keep.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. I love it.
He's one of those success stories. But I have many of the youth that I work with. Some you just got to keep working with. But what I was trying to say is, in the communities right now, where they say in the Inglewoods or in these certain places where they're like, it's just hopeless. Okay, it might be for some youth, but there are people like myself in those same communities. I grew up in back of the yards and in Inglewood and different areas too. But guess what? While people were selling drugs, I worked and delivered newspapers in the morning. And then I went to school. And after school, I played football. When football was over, I went and worked in the corner grocery store. And when I was done with that, I went home and I did my homework. And I did that again for 2 years while I was in 7th and 8th grade. Went to high school, similar type of thing. It is about the mentality. You got to want it, and then people will help you. But if you don't want it and you act like you don't want it, then people are not going to help you.
And also, if you act like you want something else, that thing will come to you too. When, I always talk to my daughter about this, is that don't say what you don't want.
Right, because,
that's just like asking for it. Yeah, that's just like asking for what you don't want. So this is I love hearing you talk about it. I actually just had a little bit of a Facebook debate about the children being separated for the crossing the borders, right? So the people coming into the country seeking asylum, and during the detention, they separated the children from the parents. And people are talking about the trauma, and we just recently had the president to sign something about it. But a person on Facebook made a post that said, why are we so concerned about the separation of these children when this has been happening in our community for years? Why are you concerned about this now when this is happening this has been happening in our community and continues to happen in our community for years, and no one does anything about it? Yeah. And my answer at the time was, if you know of any child being abused under your watch, you should say something and speak out against it. Now, with that said, that was my answer probably 2 days ago. Now I'm listening to you. And I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, which was, I call it generational curse, but you called it something else. You called it cycles. I forgot what you called it, what you said.
Well, it's still,
I'm thinking about this because your story, I'm sitting here talking to you as a person that I know, and listening to your story, it touches me. It makes me want to do something. But in the back of my mind, I know this story, right?
It's all of it's everybody's
I know this story. And for some reason, when it comes to our community, we accept it for what it is. The news not long ago, there was the story of the couple. It was a woman and woman couple. I think they had 5 adopted children, all Black children. They ran the car off the cliff, killing everyone in the car.
I didn't know that.
You didn't hear this? And actually, some people came forward saying that the children were coming out of the house at night at 2:00 in the morning, ringing doorbells in the neighborhood asking for food.
Wow.
And so something was going on there. But the point I'm getting to right here is we know that this happens, but yet we don't adopt children. I'm sure we do, but we're adopting adopting children at a lower rate. You know, it's a struggle for family members to take a child that's in their own family.
Yep.
And prevent them from being in the system. And it just makes me think, okay, are we really doing something about it? Are we really aware of what's happening and how this is impacting everyone? Are we really, you know, doing the right things?
Yeah.
You know, I know it's so many different things that we could be working on.
I was gonna say it's a lot of things there that you said in that one thing. And first and foremost, no children should be snatched away or taken away from their parent. I think some of the argument was that there's some people who were smuggling some of these kids, that they aren't actually, you know, the parent, right? But we've seen some who are actually nursing, and we know that that's their parent, and they still pull those kids away. I would just say the issue, anything of you know, taking children away from parents, whether it's here, whether it's you know, folks from the border, whatever the case is, none of it is good. None of it is right. I mean, in terms of somebody saying, well, homelessness, we got a lot of homelessness here too. I just found out that I think our country sent money or supplies over to, was it somewhere in South Korea or North Korea or something like that? I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff, funding and sending money over places. And we have homelessness really bad here, right? But again, no homelessness is good. But in terms of the community, like you said, helping out or identifying, there are people who care, but sometimes there's systems or there's power that will block you and that will keep you down. And that's like a spirit of oppression and depression.
Yeah,
there's this spirit that sort of keeps the lid and keeps us down. There are people who are saying, that's not right. That's what the Black Lives Matter thing sort of probably come up is saying, listen, we're just talking about injustices, right? Or things like that. Now, some people might be able to use that and twist that for some other things. But some say, well, all lives matter, which is true. All lives do matter. But if a group is saying, but look at the proportionate incidents and things like that. If you look at the prisons, this is no joke. Go and count the number of people that's in prison by race. And it is majority African American. Go and look at the numbers. You can get it. This is all available. Look at the number of youth that's in foster care right now. It is majority, more than 70% are African American. Look at different, you know. So when you look at that, but when people try to say, "Hey, enough is enough," what happens is there's like, that person is angry and that person's upset. Let's, you know, we got to get them out of there. Yeah. That's why even in past, when you had presidents or people who wanted to help with the civil rights, those people was assassinated. I mean, you try to do anything to help a group, any group, I don't care who it is. If you help them to try to overcome, somebody is going to try to, because they're profiting off that. Think about it with the jail systems. There are companies
with the detention centers, the tent cities.
They're profiting off of this. If you go to jail right now, majority of that is privatized. Those organizations, those companies have those people, keep people in there, free labor. That's free labor. And they're not teaching them the skills. So when they get out, that they're entrepreneurs. They're saying, no, work, make these license plates, do this. And that's for those companies. But again, to tie that back in, there are people who want to help in our communities and to help the people grow, but we lack the resources. So for example, with me, I have a consulting company, Lawler Consulting Group. I would love to be able to start implementing these youthpreneur programs. But as I mentioned to you, If I go and seek a business loan at a bank in order to have more money to hire more people so we can help more people, you know what I mean? They're going to profile me, or they're going to say, oh, Tony, your business has to make more than $50,000 or something like that. Or
you got to get the support of your community. You really do. True. You got to get the crowdfunding, the support of your community, and we have to help each other. And I think what you touched on, earlier, which really hits home, you said there are homeless right here. And I actually work with an organization where we're having a mental health awareness party next week to raise money for. We have 100 apartments that we get people off the street, homeless people off the streets, into an apartment, give them an address, give them a social worker so that they can start getting their meds and staying sane and then going into work. We have actually 6% unemployment rate out of all the people. And a lot of people have disabilities. A lot of people are not mentally there,
able to work.
Yes, mental, and they are because they have the support of the staff that are working there. They are able to do that, and it's 6% unemployment. But if you ask the community, hey, I'm selling tickets. Can you buy a ticket for this event? Would you like to donate for this event? Would you like to just come out and learn about what people in your community are going through in terms of mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia? These are people in your family. They don't want to show up. If you want to show, you want people to understand, if people don't have support and they're out on the street, they're out on the street in your community, they're out in the street harming themselves or possibly harming someone else. And then you want to say, whoa, I'm so sad, or I'm sad that such and such committed suicide, or such and such,
robbed this person. And
did this. Yeah. But the whole thing of what you were saying before, that spirit of oppression, making people feel that they're powerless, but going to that are within your power make huge differences.
Exactly. Many of the stuff that I've done without any income. Like I said, I had an organization and I supported the youth. And when I got let go, I still continue to support those same youth. And that's how we stay connected. If I have, I share. If they have, they share. So a lot of times we think that we always have to have money, but really we have to have love. We have to have time. What I do is I call this thing human capital. What I do is I learned this from a gentleman named Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe. And what he does, what he taught me is that, so what we need to do is gain this intellectual knowledge. So we can get a lot of knowledge from a lot of different places. So I'll find myself looking up things that I know that I'm like weak in or lacking in. I'll look up those things. I'll research some things, and then I'll try to impart that wisdom and spirit onto other people to help them and grow and develop. So I'm building sort of a broad range of skills or things that I can learn or teach to help people. And I might not necessarily use it, but that where that resource liaison comes in. Somebody I might cross as, hey, I need this, or how do I, I don't want to work. I want to start my own business. How do I do that? So I learn, how do you start the business? What's those steps? What's the process? And then I teach that to people. Some people may want to, I don't know, just various things. I'll try to learn what I can learn about it and teach it. So I tell people that. I say, listen, when you have free time, instead of you watching TV and this junk news, look, this junk news, I always tell, go on YouTube. There's a lot of things that people are teaching. You can learn, and whether it's fixing cars, whether it's fixing computers, whether it's learning tech stuff, you can learn so much stuff now. And now people pay people to go work, right? These factories pay you to use your labor. Well, if you have intellectual knowledge, you and I are consultants. What do people do?
They pay us
for what we know how to do.
Yes,
so that's what I'm doing. I teach people how to do that. And
so if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you to learn about your programs? We didn't even get a chance to talk about your input for your book.
Yeah, right. And I have another book that I actually co-authored. It's called You Can Do It Too. But in order to get in touch with me, you can go to Facebook, Tony Lawler, or I have my Tony at Lawler Consulting Group. If you want to get in contact.
So if you have youth camps or something like that in terms of your church or your community or nonprofit, put in the work to be first, FIRST. Right. And so I'm so thankful that you were able to join us and share your story with us today. Thank you. I'm going to have to invite you again.
Yes, please do so.
Yes. But thank you, everyone, for listening to the show tonight. And just tune in next Thursday and keep it moving. Thank you.